Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. In this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norman, your host Norman. I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Debra K. Every.
That's right.
Did I pronounce that surname
Absolutely.
correctly?
Perfect.
Thanks for being here. Who was just cursing me out before we went live. Because I said,
deny it.
I'm going to ask you to set up this song. Deborah's had so many careers. If you read this little promo thing on Facebook and Instagram stuff, you'd know some of that, including a career as an opera singer. And so we have a song queued up to play. Let's play it and we'll discuss it afterwards.
Okay.
Thank
Do you want me to tell you what it is before we
If
play?
you can. When I said that before we went on, you cursed me out.
I am the president of this
I'm a
organization.
good lip reader. I believe it was like, fuck you to hell
I
back
did say what the fuck is what I really said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, this was actually a live recording in Stockholm. The orchestra is the Stockholm Radio Symphony, the Swedish Radio Symphony, and it is one of the many folk songs that Cantaloupe had orchestrated that are fabulous. I think that's enough of an intro, don't you think?
It's good for me.
I think it's professionally said.
I wasn't really listening.
Perfectly. Okay, play the goddamn thing.
Oh my goodness, that is so ridiculously beautiful.
Thank you.
So how long ago was that?
Oh, God. I think that was back in 96.
Okay.
Yeah, 96. I'm an old broad.
An old broad. Still 96. So, but you weren't 96. You weren't like 18 or 22 in 96.
No. I was, I think, 40 at the time. I'm 72 now, so I don't know.
Right.
You do the math. I was born in
No,
52,
this
62,
is not a math
72, 82, 92. Oh, my God. I was like 44 years old. I lied about my age. I didn't tell
whom?
people how. To people who might give me a job as an opera singer. Otherwise, I didn't give a shit.
And I picture somebody sitting on the sidewalk with a cardboard sign in New York City, opera singer, age 27.
Yeah.
So how did it come to pass that somebody gave you a job as an opera singer?
Oh, gosh, I got lucky. I got lucky every step of the way. I can't attribute it to anything else. It had always been music for me. I wanted to be a singer from the very, very beginning, except for I spent 2 years in art school. And that was foolish. This was in 1970. It was much more cool to be an artist than to be a singer because I wasn't a rock singer.
Especially an opera singer.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to think
Janis
that's a
Joplin.
cool thing, right?
Yeah.
So I went to art school, which was a huge mistake. And then one day I wandered across the street to the Philadelphia Music Academy because I went to school in Philly. And the second I walked in the door, I knew that I had no business in art school and I had every business in music school. So the next year I transferred over.
And in high school, as a younger woman, were you a singer? Musician of some sort?
I sang. I started playing the violin. I was good at the violin, got a scholarship with a well-known violin teacher at the time I think his name was Ortenberg. And until I discovered that you really have to practice if you want to play violin. This seemed like a foolish thing to spend my time on. So I decided to quit the violin and be a singer, not knowing that you really have to practice to be a singer. So I switched to singing when I was in high school. But again, you're in high school, okay? You see the marching band and the choir on one end, and then you see all those art student kids, and it's 1970. Who do you want to be a part of? You want to be over with the with the artists,
still
right?
trying to get there.
Well, that's another thing.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be easy. I mean, my father's rallying cry had always been, how hard could it be? So how hard could it be? So I walked into the art class and I said, I want to draw a picture for you, and you can tell me if I've got talent. So they said, oh, okay.
Wait, this was in high school?
This was in high school. So I drew this picture. He said, yeah, you got talent, kid. And the only school I could apply to was the Philadelphia College of Art, PCA, at the
Why
time.
was that the only school you could apply to?
Because I didn't need a portfolio. And I had decided to do this in my senior year of high school.
Okay.
And I had never drawn or painted anything in my life.
Right.
This is the mentality.
But you'd been singing and playing the
But
violin.
I've been singing and playing violin. That's what I should have been doing. So the PCA was the only school I could apply to because they didn't require a portfolio. They did something called a home test, so that they had in
the back of comic books, like draw the old prospector.
Yes, and they had several prompts. It was an even playing field. I did the prompts. They thought it was mediocre, but they said, yes, come to our school, so long as you come to our summer program, which I did. So anyway.
So you went to the summer program.
I went to the summer program.
Was it like technique heavy? Was it a draft?
It was technique. It was 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and I went to 3-dimensional design, 2-dimensional design, drawing kind of a thing, 3 different classes, after which I was allowed to begin at the college in September. But I have to say, I knew I was in the wrong place from the very, very beginning because I was surrounded by people who had been making art their entire lives. Right. You know, when they were like a month old, they probably grabbed their poop and smeared. I'm sorry, did I say that on the air?
No.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, no.
You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's the opposite of anal retentive. I forget what it's called, but artists have that. It's like, hey, look at my poop.
No, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I'm sorry.
So when you're in art school, did you think that you would be a sculptor or a painter or a poop
I decided
smearer?
I was going to be a painting major. So that's what I did until I handed in an assignment, and my painting teacher was so disgusted at my poor sense of color that he looked me up and down. On that day, I was wearing like beige shorts and everything.
Wait, art students didn't wear all black back in the 70s?
No. They wore clay encrusted jeans, but no, not all black. And he looked me up and down and said, look at you. You are a mass of neutrals. And that was the singular moment that I knew that I was really in the wrong place.
Wow.
Really in the wrong place.
A mass of neutrals.
A mass of neutrals.
But nobody's described you anything like that ever since then.
Never. So clearly, it was a good thing that I escaped that school and went across the street to the music school.
Across the street. And so you walked in. You felt you were at home.
Oh, Philadelphia Music Academy was an amazing place. It was housed in an old hotel, and I think it must have been a welfare hotel, because the 2 top floors, the 4th and 5th floor, was where the practice rooms were. They were tiny. This must have been the bedrooms. They were tiny little rooms. So I walked in there one day after a particularly bad critique. It was threadbare and nasty, and I loved every corner of it. I went up to, nobody stops you back then. You know, I walked in, there was no guard, got up to the 5th floor, and I was walking down the hall. I will never forget it. Each room had somebody else practicing in it. So you would walk past a door and you'd hear a pianist, and then as you walk down the hall, that pianist would fade, and then you'd start hearing a violinist, and then you'd start hearing a trumpet player. And each single one of those things made me feel like all that shit that had happened that day had peeled away. It just peeled away. And I knew that I had to go to that school.
And so was it easy to just jump across the street?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. How hard could it be?
I love that. And was your dad, who you're quoting, How Hard Could It Be, right? Was he an artist or a musician of some sort?
No, he was a failed businessman.
Failed businessman.
Yes, he went from one business to another with that very with that very 5-word phrase as his motto. Everything he did was very hard, but he was right to the end believing that it was as simple as, he was the one who told me I wanted to play the guitar. So he got me a folk guitar for Christmas one year, and he said, Debbie, the only person who ever called me Debbie. Debbie, he said, all you have to do is learn 7 chords, 1 for each note in the scale, and you'll be able to play any music, any type of music, anytime.
Did he play guitar? Did
No,
he know
did
the 7
not.
chords?
He did not know the chords. He reasoned that since there are 7 notes in a scale, you just need a chord for each one of those notes,
I see.
and then you can play anything. And of course, that's not true for anybody who's a musician who's listening. That's not true.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
later on, the Ramones and the Sex Pistols
Yeah.
sort of said, well, fuck
Yeah,
some,
I
3.
know.
We'll just make it do with 3 chords.
Yeah, at one point he decided he was going to write a script for a movie because, again, but he didn't write and he didn't type, so he talked into a tape recorder so that my mother could transcribe it. He talked into the tape recorder for maybe a page worth of the movie. It was about gambling and sex. And he figured, you've got a story about gambling, you got a story about sex, it can't be bad.
Right.
And he got through, that's true. He got through a page of it and then gave it up because it's hard. It's very hard. So that was my father, and that's who I take after.
But it didn't seem like you failed at anything.
Well, you know how to write a resume, right? You write a resume, you can be the king of the universe on your resume.
It's the truth well told.
It is the truth well told. That's right.
Yeah.
Everything is true, I will say. And I have been lucky. But I mean, I debuted at the Royal Opera in Stockholm, and I had a Carnegie Recital Hall debut, and that was also a piece of luck.
All right, well, let's go back to the singing. You spent a couple of years studying that in Philadelphia.
I went to music school. I was an excellent musician. I was good on stage. I had a tiny little voice.
What does that mean, good on stage?
I could act.
Okay.
I could act, and I was told.
Which is, if you're doing opera,
when you're doing opera,
you're
that's
not
important.
just singing, you're acting with your voice and your body. And
right. And I was told that on stage, people were interested in seeing what I did on stage. And I don't know, for whatever that means, but people were interested in seeing what I did. My voice, however, was small. And to be an opera singer, particularly in this country, you're not going to get very far with a small voice because the opera houses in this country are built large because of the era in which they were built. Germany has small opera houses because they have a longer tradition of opera in their country. So I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make a career for myself. But I knew I had to go to New York, and I got a job in a brokerage firm to make enough money until somebody was willing to hire me.
Okay,
and
right. So you did 2 years of singing.
I did a 4-year program at no, I think it was a 3-year program because some of my credits moved over.
And singers weren't mic'd at that point, so you needed to fill the hall with
they're not
strong voice.
Most of the opera singers are not mic'd. The Met, as it turns out, does a very subtle miking of their singers. People don't realize that, but now I have left the cat out of the bag. At least they used to. I don't know if they still do that.
I always assumed that either they were individually mic'd or they were, floor mics and in front of the stage or something.
They are very subtly mic'd.
Right.
They aren't supposed to be mic'd. Opera singers are not supposed to be mic'd unless you're Andrea Bocelli. And then the only hope for him is to be mic'd.
Why? When does he have a small voice?
He has a very small voice. Yeah.
Huh.
And, I have my own theories about Andrea Bocelli, but...
Oh, well, let's hear them.
No, I don't.
Come on, my listeners demand all the scuttlebutt on Bocelli.
Oh my gosh, I'll get hate mail. Somebody like a Pavarotti, or there is only one Pavarotti, or a Placido Domingo,
right,
would never really need to be mic'd. They have very, very large voices, large and full. So in most opera houses, they will be heard. Their voices will carry.
They're enormous human beings.
They're enormous human beings. I feel as if Andrea Bocelli benefited from the time in which he started singing because he was on camera, he was mic'd, and he was blind. And I think that worked in his favor.
Right.
I really do. I really do.
You heard it here first from Debra K. Bocelli, it's just a novelty act.
Well, he has a lovely small voice.
Lovely little voice.
No, he does. He has a lovely voice. It's a pretty voice. It's a
Right.
pretty voice. But you would never be able to see Andrea Bocelli in an opera house of any size.
Right. And for
You
all
wouldn't.
the Bocelli relatives listening.
And I'm sorry, don't hate me for saying that.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to sound pretentious, because I'm not. I can tell you that I can also say that I didn't have the voice that should have been in opera. My voice was small, and it was not the kind of voice that I wish I had.
So how did
I
you...
really fell short as an opera singer, in my opinion. I really did.
How then did you sort of head towards opera?
Foolishness. I thought I could make myself better.
Foolishness, hubris,
It was
bravado.
It wasn't. I don't know if it was hubris. Well, I loved singing.
Uh-huh.
My father would never have allowed me to be a rock and roll singer, because you can't do that.
Did you sing rock and roll when you were home alone?
No, I didn't. I would never have dared do such a thing, because my father would never allow that kind of life for me, and I was a good girl.
They kind of blast.
And so the only way
girl.
I could be a singer was to do something that had a stamp of approval, and that was to be an opera singer.
Right.
That has some stature, right? If I had had courage, I would have taken my tiny little voice with a capital C, and that rhymes with, well, anyway.
I don't know.
I don't know. If I had had the courage, and it didn't matter to me about how big a career I had, I should have been a concert singer, because that was really all my voice was good for. I was just not, and this is a long way of me saying that I never really believed that my voice was that unusual or that special. I just loved performing.
Right.
And I was willing to take what I could get, take what I could get to be able to perform, even if it meant doing small things. Ultimately, after my debut at the Royal Opera, when I had two kids, one at the time, and the travel was onerous. I was in Sweden for 4 months, and I had a 2-year-old, and I was fortunate. They gave me a 2-bedroom apartment, so he could come over with a nanny, and we could be together for a good part of that time. But you can't travel like that and be a parent. So I ended up doing concert work, which is what I should have done all along.
And it sounds like that's what you really loved doing best.
You know what? I loved opera, and I just didn't have a good enough voice to be able to do it as a career.
What is concert work then?
Oh, concert work is when you do recitals or you are a soloist with an orchestra.
Okay.
And that was how I designed my career.
I see.
Was with that. So it was because of that concert work that I made a recording, which is a different story, and what you heard right there with that Cantaloupe song is concert work. It was with an orchestra, but it is not opera. Cantaloupe wrote songs that were accompanied by orchestra.
And who is Cantaloupe?
Oh my gosh! Well, now can't answer that question. He was a composer, but I can't. I don't know much about his history. He was only known for these songs of the Auvergne, is what he is best known for.
Right.
Chants d'Auvergne. There's a lot of recordings of Chants d'Auvergne out there. Flicker von Stade made one. Kiri Takano. Everybody has made one. They are luscious, great, accessible songs, but they don't require a huge range for a singer.
Okay.
Which was perfect for me. And I was very fortunate to have a conductor who liked my voice and decided that this is what you should do, Debra, with the Swedish Radio Symphony, because it didn't tax my range, which didn't go well, didn't work well for me. So everything, I had to be very smart in the roles that I took and the things that I programmed, because my top register wasn't really what it should be, and I didn't have the big ballsy bottom that mezzo-sopranos are supposed to have. And I managed to fashion a nice little career, a 10-year career out of that. The key for me was that I loved performing.
Right.
I wanted to perform. Opera is the greatest thing to perform because you're in an ensemble and you can act and you can be something different. And of course, that's what I wanted to do. But there was a very limited number of roles I could do in a very limited number of opera houses. I ended up with a Metropolitan Opera audition in the house. And
that
was
sounds pretty dreamy.
It was pretty horrifying. And they could hear that my voice was too small. They weren't going to hire me.
Right.
So, you know.
But you got to audition.
I could have been a contender.
Well, it sounds like you don't think you could have been.
I did the best I could.
Yeah.
I did the best I could.
God bless you.
Yeah.
So back to school, you finished the program, singing.
Mm-hmm.
You decided you needed to make money somehow.
Right.
So you moved from Philadelphia to New York.
Right. I actually started the brokerage business in Philly, but ostensibly that's what I did.
Started the brokerage business.
Yeah.
So you come out of music school. Most people don't come out of music school and start a brokerage business.
It is a foolish way to go, isn't it?
I wouldn't say foolish. It's just noteworthy.
Musicians tend to have an affinity for math. Music is a very mathematically oriented discipline. Now, I never wanted to be in the brokerage business. I just needed a job. So I essentially lied at my interview and I said how much I was fascinated with the brokerage business and, oh, please give me a job. And they were looking for a clerk, somebody to, back then, you actually hand wrote the tickets for the over-the-counter trades.
Okay.
So I hand wrote the tickets and I typed up the confirmations and I handed out the offering sheets on the floor, that kind of thing. But I had an affinity for it. And a couple years later, I was running $1 billion for an investment firm in the city, in New York. So that's kind of wacky, right? Here's the thing.
No.
Here's the thing.
How do you get...
If I had wanted a career as a bond trader, it never would have happened.
You said that somewhere. I read that. And I was like, well, why? Why? Because you seem to have a lot of willpower and to make things happen for yourself. And you attribute it to luck, but
I think
some people say luck is the residue of design, and it seems like you've had pretty good design throughout your life.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, let's go with that.
It's an interesting comment, but I'm not sure I buy that. I think you probably would have been a great bond trader.
I don't know. I was a good bond trader. I stopped trading bonds. Well, I stopped trading bonds when I got offered the job in Stockholm, but I wouldn't have stayed in that business much longer because the business actually changed while I was there.
Right.
I was an intuitive bond trader. One of the things I can do is I can sense where value is because I'm good at looking at things comparatively. And in the beginning of my bond trading career, you had to know where everything was selling so that you could decide how much to pay for something that was out for the bid, right? And you had to figure out to pay the least amount that you needed to pay to buy that product, but still be able to mark it up and then sell it and make money. That's essentially what you're doing, right? So you have to have a sense of all the things that are out there, what is selling and what is not selling, and then feel comfortable with the price that you're willing to pay for this product, this bond. One of the things I can do, I'm pretty good at comparative analysis. So I can see what that difference is, but it is intuitive. And what happened with the brokerage business over time is that it became very data oriented instead.
Right.
So you had to have a great sense of where the economy was going, all the other markets, and do all kinds of charting and that sort of thing. Now, when I was trying to decide whether to play violin or not, that's an awful lot of work. So I knew that my days as a bond trader were numbered because I was an intuitive trader and I didn't have the training or the desire to learn how to do that kind of analysis.
Gotcha. So you're doing this bond trading and you're singing and rehearsing, practicing the whole time. Mm-hmm. And somehow you got a gig in Sweden?
Well, I was fortunate to be running this department because what it meant was it was Midtown in the city. And what was great was that if I wanted to take an hour and a half for lunch, or if I was gone for 2 hours, it was pretty much okay because this was my department. And I would go to the Upper West Side and I'd audition. So that was what I was doing at my lunch hour, was I was auditioning.
And did the people know that, your fellow Bond
Why
people?
no, I don't think they did.
So it was a conscious decision to not tell them?
Well, I don't think they would have approved.
Yeah. What do you think they would have thought?
I think they would have thought I wasn't serious about the business, which may be true.
But they really wanted people who were really serious.
Well, you're running a department. You've got a lot of assets under management. You're going to hope that the person who's responsible for your clients making money is going to care about what they're doing. And I did a good job. It's not that I didn't do a good job, but it's just I just didn't think at the time that it was the way to go.
So you're auditioning and
I'm auditioning, feeling the love.
And you auditioned for this job.
I auditioned for the
Stockholm.
Royal Opera. They were casting for this specialized opera called Pelléas et Mélisande, and it's specialized because the lead for that is not the big, loud, bombastic soprano or mezzo-soprano. The lead has to be a good actress, and be familiar with French art songs and understand how to sing the French language. And that's kind of my bailiwick. I don't have a huge voice. So I auditioned for that, and God damn it if they cast me. It was a shocker.
That's amazing. First off, congratulations. Bailiwick is the word of the day. So
did I say bailiwick?
We've got a gift certificate for you on your way out. Yeah.
I don't even know the words that are coming out of my mouth. They're coming out fast and furious. Stop me, please.
Not a chance. You go out and have a cigarette while you continue talking. So do you speak languages? Do you speak French or Italian?
Nah, I don't speak those languages.
But you somehow could pronounce
when
them
you're in school,
correctly.
when you're in music school and you're a voice major, you take a year of French, Italian, and German to have a sense of how the language works. And then you take diction classes, English, French, Italian, and German, so you can be able to sing it and be believable. I did, however, get lambasted for my German when I had a recital at the Royal Palace in Stockholm. This ass of a journalist sat me down and fed me alcohol and jollied me along, and he said, "And what languages do you speak, Debra?" And I said, "Why, none." And wouldn't you know, he comes to my recital at the Royal Palace, and I was doing this song cycle by Schumann, and God damn it, that review the next day said that they really loved the American songs. I did Charles Ives, and this was wonderful, but she clearly doesn't understand the German language. And I thought, you son of a bitch.
Jeez.
I know. I was young. 44. I was young and I was and naive.
But is that old for that kind of a career, to be 44?
Oh my God, yes. It's a shelf life issue. You're not going to have...
shelf life is till like 29, I'll bet.
You've got two singers looking for an agent. I had an agent. I had an agent in the U.S. and I had an agent in Scandinavia. But you're an agent and you have two singers that you like equally. One of them is 28 and the other one is 42. You're going to put every bit as much work in each of them to get their career going. You're going to want lots of runway with these singers. You're going to get much more runway with the 28-year-old than you're going to get with the 42-year-old. And it's as simple as that. Once you've made a career for yourself and you've made a name for yourself, it doesn't much matter. You're going to sing until it's embarrassing. But to get started, I had to lie about my age.
And so what did you say you were?
Well,
you're 44.
think.
I mean, because you
I had to have said I was
look young
37.
now.
Yeah.
You're 37?
I had to say, maybe I said 37, but what I did was...
It sounds like 32 to
I
me.
was terrified. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But was terrified. I had a birth certificate. And for some reason, for some other purpose, I decided to take 2 years off my birth certificate, okay? So I photocopied. It was a handwritten birth certificate. It's not the kind with the seal.
So you're a forger as well.
So I photocopied the birth certificate. I white out the date, all the writing. I rewrite it, and I make myself 2 years younger. And I did it for I don't even know what. I think
Why
it was
just 2?
It was stupid, right? I don't know. Maybe it was 4. It was
12,
2.
you know.
It should have been. So now years go by, years and years and years go by, and I'm looking for a birth certificate for I don't know what, and I come across this birth certificate. Oh, it was 4 years. I'm born in 52. Yeah, and it was 4 years. And I come across this birth certificate that says I was born in 1956. And I swear to God, I had forgotten I had forged the birth certificate. I forgot. And I thought to myself, wait a minute. I mean, did I get my birth date wrong? Could I be 4 years younger? Yeah. And that was what I was like that for about an hour until I finally remembered. Oh, God damn it. I forged the goddamn thing 20 years ago.
That's spectacular.
Yeah.
So how long did it last with the opera there in Stockholm?
The Royal Opera?
Yeah.
Well, it was one performance. So I was there for 4 months, and that got me other work in Scandinavia, and I had a concert tour in Scandinavia, and I went back many times there, and I had an agent who's no longer alive, which is sad.
So apart from the one crappy reviewer.
Oh, yeah. I got a spectacular review.
You got good reviews.
I got a spectacular review in Dagens Nyheter, which is their, essentially, it's not their Times, it's maybe their Post or something like that. It's the secondary newspaper.
Right.
It was a great review. And I was getting work. So the hell with him. He can eat dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We probably ended up eating dirt.
A curse on him and his children and his children's children is what I say to him.
Well, that goes without saying. So you got good reviews. You had a career. You had a nice reputation. And you had an agent.
I had 2 agents, yeah.
2 agents, one for here, one for there. And it's going along well.
Going along well, yeah.
How did that come to an end?
I was traveling, and now I had 2 kids. The one recording I made, I had an engagement with the Virginia Symphony. I was 7 months pregnant. I was wearing the most ridiculous dress. It was green. It must have been my hormones that made me pick such a thing. I waddled out there, and I said, anyway, and we moved up here. I used to live in Connecticut, and to get into the city to audition.
Wait, I thought you lived in New York City.
Well, yeah, but then we moved out to Connecticut
when
the kids were young. So in Connecticut, you can drive to the city, you can audition, you can come back, and you can be there for the kids. Then we moved up to Rhinebeck, and that became impossible to do. One of my problems as a singer was that there are some singers who can push themselves physically and still be able to sing, and I was never one of those singers.
Okay.
If I was on a plane, I'd have to be careful to make sure I was hydrated. I always had to make sure I had ibuprofen with me in case my cords swelled. It was really hard to stay healthy. And as my kids grew, and as I needed to do more things with them, I became a shitty mother, and I became a shitty singer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, were the kids writing sort of a tell-all?
And then my kids are now on a tower with a gun saying, "This is for you, Mom." No, we're very, very close. But I would get cranky with them. And
first parent ever, I think, probably to get cranky with their children.
I think I probably was the only parent in the world that got cranky with their children.
I never got cranky with my kids.
I just really feel terrible about that.
Yeah.
Matthew, Sam, if you're listening, I love you so much. Please know that I love you.
Matthew, Sam, she looks super sincere. So where were you in Connecticut?
Well, we lived in New Canaan for a while.
We is you and...
my husband, mein Mann, Glenn.
Glenn. And you met in Philadelphia or in New York City?
We met in the city. He was a lawyer in the city, and we had a mutual friend. I knew somebody on the trading desk when I was at Hutton. I was at E.F. Hutton. And Glenn had just moved into New York from Washington, had joined a Park Avenue law firm, and our mutual friend said, "You got to meet my buddy. He likes opera and older women. He'll love you." So I'm 6 years older.
So you went back and changed the birth certificate again?
Right back down again. Right back down again. I met him and I said, here's my birth certificate. I'm older than you. Yeah. So we met, and it was pretty much love at first sight.
Amazing.
Yeah, I really feel lucky about that too.
That's great.
The lucky girl. But we did. We met at. Did you lived in the city?
I did.
Of course you did. We met at Heartbreak on Varick Street. Do you remember Heartbreak?
No.
No, you're too young to know Heartbreak. Yeah.
That's right. I'm too young.
You're too young.
So you met at this club down there on Varick Street where the clubs were.
Yeah. And 2 days later, he came upstate to see his parents, and his buddy was here, and he said, I just met the girl I'm going to marry.
Where upstate?
Woodstock.
Oh, his family was there?
His family lives in Woodstock, yeah.
Still?
Well, they're gone now, but that was where they were
before,
when they were alive, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And so you met there. You lived in. You got married shortly thereafter.
A year later, and it was
fast.
And it was that long. It took that long because right after we met, and we were very intensely in love, I had to do an opera festival in Iowa. And I was gone for 7 weeks. It seems bizarre to have an opera festival in Iowa, don't you think? It was a great festival. And I think it knocked the stuffing out of him. He thought, how can I be with this woman if she's going to be gone for chunks of time? It actually was the reason I took a hiatus from singing, because I had to decide whether I loved him enough to make him feel comfortable. I did the old football bait and switch, man.
But did you feel that you really needed to give up some of the opera?
He never suggested such a thing, and he never would have asked me to do such a thing.
But you really just wanted to be with him.
I loved him, and I didn't want not to have him there.
Right.
But but we were married for about a year, and he could see that I wasn't particularly happy, and he insisted that I go back to singing, even though I had a job at the investment firm. And so I started up again.
Great.
Yeah.
And so what did that look like when you got back into singing?
Well, the juggle. It was the juggle. I started with small companies and worked my way up. New York is great. You've got companies. You have companies that you actually can pay to sing, which is kind of a fascinating thing. Do you remember the Amato Opera House down in the Village? It was right next to CBGB's on Bowery.
Oh, no.
Okay, well, there was an opera house. It was called Amato Opera. He had a business model that, I'll tell you what, my hat is off to him. He would not call it an opera house. He would call it a program to teach opera. He would do, say, Marriage of Figaro. He would cast 15 people for every single part. You got one rehearsal, you got one performance. It was 100-seat or maybe 200-seat auditorium room down in the Bowery. Nobody got comped, and you got this one performance. So the cast, of course, would ask everybody to come and buy tickets.
Right.
And for this privilege, you had to pay, because of course it's a workshop, right? You're learning something. So if you had a minor part, you paid $50. If you had a lead, you paid $200. Okay.
Oh,
so yeah, a friend of mine said, I don't think you'll ever be able to afford to sing at the Met. I mean, at that rate. But that was New York. So that was what it looked like. I started out with Tony's. Tony, it was a family, and we loved him, and it was a funny little opera house with, actually, I think the stage was about as wide as this room right here. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. Tony Amato's, Amato Opera House. And then there were all kinds of small opera companies that you could do work for, and you'd get paid $50 or you'd get paid $150 or something like that. And you ply your trade and you learn.
And do you remember what you sang there?
At Amato's? Sure. I sang a Così fan tutte and a Marriage of Figaro, and I did a Carmen, the only house in the world I could do a Carmen.
These are proper operas.
Oh, yeah, proper. He did an Aida on that stage.
Uh-huh.
I never saw it. I wish I could have. But yeah, he did full-length proper operas. His orchestra pit, he could not have string players because there was not enough room to bow. So his orchestra pit had a keyboard and a couple of wind players.
Right.
Yeah, and he conducted.
So it must have been kind of dreamy to be singing these operas.
Oh, it was great.
After all this time of not really feeling fit for operas.
Yeah, it was great, and it was such a small house that the smallness of my voice was not an issue. My acting became what I hung my hat on. Right. And I always felt confident with that.
And did you ever think at some point, like, you know what, I can leave the singing behind and
be an actress? Yeah, I took some acting lessons, as part of opera training, and it occurred to me it seemed monumentally difficult, and I just never did it. In retrospect, should I have done it? I don't know. I like to pretend it's good that I never did it, because that means I would have been great. You know what I'm saying?
How hard
I
could
would
it
have
be?
been great.
Yeah.
Thank God I didn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think anybody who knows you would probably imagine, as I am imagining right now, that you'd be an amazing actress.
Yeah.
And like a star of stage and
I would
screen.
have been a star.
Baby. But you didn't pursue that.
No, I didn't.
And eventually you stopped singing.
I did.
Professionally.
Because it was too hard with my kids, and I couldn't give them back. I had the kids.
Even though you wanted to?
No, I never would have.
We can talk.
Back.
Come on.
No,
It's just between us.
I loved them madly. The second I laid eyes on them, I was mad for them. But yeah. And the first year I had stopped, it was heaven.
Right.
Absolute heaven. I got sick, and it was glorious to get sick.
Right.
Oh, God, I didn't have to worry about drinking the tea with the honey. I didn't have to worry about keeping my mouth shut. I didn't have to worry about keeping a scarf. Oh, it was spectacular.
Oh, so nice. And you were in Greenwich at this point, or
No,
Fairfield? Or
when I quit singing, it was up here.
Oh.
My swan song. Does the Hudson Valley Philharmonic, do they still exist? I'm not sure. When I moved up here, there was an orchestra called the Hudson Valley Philharmonic, and they were about to go bankrupt. I knew somebody in the orchestra, and she asked if I would do a fundraiser at the Center for the Performing Arts.
Right.
So I said, well, sure. And I worked on a recital that I had wanted to do for years and years and years, an all Bernstein show.
Oh, nice.
Which is spectacular, because Bernstein had so many different styles of writing that you could have an entire night of Bernstein and have an enormous variety in the music, right?
Right.
And right before I was about to give the concert, they decided to declare chapter 13 or 11, and they didn't need the fundraiser anymore. So I wasn't sure what to do, and I decided, screw it, I'm just going to do the concert. And it turned out to be the last concert I ever gave.
Wow.
Yeah. And at the very end of the concert, and of course I ended with a whole bunch of songs from West Side Story, because that's how you would end a concert like that. And the lights went out. I remember I knew it was the last time I was ever going to sing. I'm going to cry. And I was bent over I was bent over crying. And by the time the lights came back on again, I got up and I stood back up and I gave a bow. But it was a very difficult thing for me to do.
And you knew it was going to be the last time?
I knew it was going to be the last.
You reprioritized your life, and you
had
these kids.
And I had told my agent that I was going to move on, and thank you very much. And
right.
Yeah, I wasn't taking any more work, and it was done.
Huh. Yeah. Amazing. And have you sung out since then?
No.
Just at home? Do you sing for your? Did you sing for your kids?
I sing always.
When they were younger?
Absolutely.
Did you sing them to sleep?
Absolutely.
Sweet.
I sang them to sleep, and I made up stories at night, bedtime stories.
Oh, I love that. That's so sweet.
Yeah. So I did a lot.
Did you have a particular ditty that you sang to them to get
I used
them
to
fall
make
asleep?
up. I used to make up stories.
I
used to make up songs. I would make up songs for their day and that sort of thing, so that it was a song that was just for them.
Song about the day they'd had?
Yeah, the day they had, or something funny that happened, or did you see when you went out to the store? I knew you loved it. That kind of thing.
Oh my God, have you recorded any of these for posterity?
No,
seriously, someday your boys are going to be like, remember Mom saying that? Wish I had that recording. It's easy to do now.
I know. I don't
and
think
the holidays are coming right up.
Yeah,
Makes a great holiday gift.
I have a thought in my mind to see if I can get published some of the stories that I made up for them, because I kind of wrote them down at a certain point, and I thought maybe I should think about getting them published, but I don't know.
And so do you think that had any effect on them? Like having a mom who's just that creative, just making up stories out of the blue?
Well, I think that both boys are very, very creative themselves. So
right.
yeah, I think it had a lot to do with their path. But they are definitely a combination of my husband and me. My older boy went to Cooper Union. I think I had told you that. So he was an artist for a while, and then he became a bespoke rifle maker. And then he decided, I think I'm going to write now, Mom. So I guess he's a chip off the old block. And he was senior editor at Field and Stream, and now he's a writer. And then my younger boy is a very creative race car engine builder, and that takes an enormous amount of creativity. And he also races cars, so that's what he does. And he likes the danger of it, and he gets that from my husband. So they're very much a combination of the two of us.
So sweet.
Yeah.
So you said bespoke rifle maker?
Yes, he worked for a guy who built these special rifles for high-end.
Too?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. He did that for a short time, and then he left and did some hunting guiding out in the Midwest.
Wow.
And did that for a while, and he likes doing different things too.
Well, love that. And was Dad a marksman or a hunter? Or?
My father. Now that is the Freudian slip.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Becky. I'm sorry. Let me think.
How long have you felt this way? Please.
My husband. He grew
father.
up He grew up in Woodstock, and he grew up as a hunter.
Right.
Then he went to law school, and that I think was something that he had set aside for a little while. And then he had a practice in the city for a while. We lived in Connecticut for a while. When he came back up here, I think that he got reconnected with those roots. So he is a hunter, not as big a hunter as my older boy now.
Right.
But they always try and get out every deer hunting season, and they enjoy that together. And then my husband also races cars. So my younger boy runs his race team.
What? How fabulous! And what kinds of cars do they race?
Vintage cars. He's got three. He's got a 1969 Corvette, and he's got some Datsun and some Camaro. I think they're not as sexy as the Corvette, but they're better cars. I guess
69 is pretty nice. They've got the chrome, right?
I don't think it's a chrome issue. It was built as a race car.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, so these are race cars.
Okay.
And I can't tell you the Camaro or the Datsun make, but these are meant to be race cars.
Right.
Yeah.
What's
and
fun?
my younger boy is rebuilding a Corvette race car, and he works for Dyson Racing, so he is all around the country with their race team and stuff like that. So both of them have a great connection to my husband, not my father, in both racing and hunting.
Yeah.
I know, just
And your husband, not your father, is he listening now, do you think?
He wouldn't be, but he will be later on, and with any luck, he'll forget.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So how did you get from Connecticut to Rhinebeck? Was it proximity to Woodstock, or?
Why did we do that? I don't know why we did that.
That's the whole point of this show.
Oh, I know why. Now it comes back to me. Glenn had decided that he was going to start helping his father run the transportation business. They're in the transportation business. They have buses. So we moved up here so that he could start working with his father on the transportation business with the idea of taking it over, which he ultimately did.
Okay.
And we were trying to decide whether we should live in Ulster County or Dutchess County, and my vote was Dutchess County because it spoke to me more than Ulster, although I love Ulster County and I love Woodstock. It's a great place, but I felt very at home here.
You did?
Yeah,
okay.
I really did. A second I got here, I loved it.
It was like music school versus art school.
It's like the west side versus the east side in the city.
Right.
Right? Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the east side and the west side is across the river. And I love both sides of the river. I just felt a little bit more at home here for some reason.
And so what year was that y'all moved here?
Matthew was, I don't remember.
And did the kids go to school here?
Yeah, they did. They went to Rhinebeck school. They left for a short time. Matthew left for 2 years, and he went to Millbrook prep, and Sam left for 2 years and went to Loomis Chaffee, but they were here. Oh, and they both started out at Montessori school. So, but they ended up at the public school for the whole rest of the time that they were here.
Right.
It's a great place to go to school. I mean, geez, it's such a great community. I just love this community so much.
Yeah.
I really, really do.
So you moved here. Were you never, discontent with life in this small town?
Never. I loved
Right.
it. I love this town so much. I love the size of it. I love the configuration of it.
Right.
There are not many towns like Rhinebeck.
No.
And I value it 100%. I have never felt sorry to live here. Never in a million years. I once in a while miss New York.
Right.
But I could just take the train, and I spend a lot of time in New York now. And so
Right.
I go to New York. Well, every once in a while, I wish I had an apartment in the city.
Right.
But you know what? It's if I could only have one place to live, it would be here. No question about it.
Right. So you moved here. You're raising the kids. You gave up the opera singing.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you opened a little restaurant.
Yeah, that was a crazy thing to do, right? What was I thinking?
Did
for
you have a
God's
lot of
sake?
experience running
Why
a restaurant?
no, I didn't have any
How hard
experience.
could it be?
I had people over for dinner a lot. I did that.
Oh, that's a good experience. Did you put that on your resume?
Why, yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I have people over for dinner. No, I had stopped singing. I was doing a lot of volunteer work in the school for, the Whale Watch. I met a lot of dear friends because we
Whale
did Whale
Watch.
Watch fundraisers together.
Beautiful thing that
I
was.
know. I miss Mrs. Mancaneri doing
Yeah.
that so
Trying
much.
to get her in the show.
Oh, God, you need to. That's a great idea.
She's like,
Oh, come on. The stories she could tell.
Oh, yeah.
So I met a lot of people through that, but I was getting bored as the kids were getting older. So I thought, why don't I just bake pies for this little farm stand in Ulster County? And the end of that season at Thanksgiving, I had 80 pies everywhere in my house. I had them on my kitchen table, at my stove, in the dining room, on chairs, every place. It was really hard. Maybe it was the second year I did it. So I knew that I either had to stop doing it or open a place. And of course,
You didn't want to stop doing it.
how could I not open a place? Why wouldn't I do something as simple as open a restaurant? So I opened the cafe, and
What was it called?
Me Oh My Cafe and
Oh, yeah.
Pie Shop.
I remember that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask you what I ask everybody who has ever been to my cafe. Was I nice to you or rude to you?
I don't think you were there.
Thank God.
Did you have somebody at the front of the house while you were
I
baking
hope
in
so.
the back?
I hope
Yeah.
so. I hope so. I really hope so. I had to have front of house after a bit because I was rude. Was I nice to you
Were
or
you
rude to you?
famous for being rude to people?
I don't know. I had to be.
Not that rude. I mean, you won some, what was it, Sophie
I did.
Awards.
I won. Well, that was after. I was best dinner in the Hudson Valley in my price range. I was best chocolate chip cookies. Why wouldn't I be? What else happened? Oh, great review in Zagat's. Do you know Deb Rodriguez did a
on CBS News
thing
Radio.
on CBS?
Yeah.
Yeah, she got some kind of award for that. I can't say
that's
that
so
I
sweet.
got the award, but she got the award.
Oh, that's so cool. Still.
Yeah. So she did that. Yeah, it was. I even had the New York Times write up a couple paragraphs in the travel section about Me Oh My.
I would love that.
Yeah. And since making money was never important to me, it's all about the reviews and awards, my job there was done.
I love
I
that.
had done everything
All
I
right, now
needed to
speaking
do.
of reviews and awards and stuff, we have like 4 minutes left.
Get out of
Assume because
town.
You wrote a book, which
Oh
is
my
why
God.
you're here.
Oh my God. We got to talk about the book.
Well, let's hear it.
Deena Undone.
Yeah.
Buy this book, Deena Undone. Oh my God. I wrote this book. It's a very personal book.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it when my Aunt Mary burned down her apartment in New York. And
Was she a smoker?
Yeah, she was smoking in bed.
Ugh.
Yeah, and it was a very difficult year for both of us. She ended up moving up here. If you read Deena Undone, you'll see thinly veiled spots in Rhinebeck mentioned in the book. Stanhope is essentially Rhinebeck, but I did give Rhinebeck a little square, a little, center square for people to hang out in. I did do that because Rhinebeck should have that. And there was a place called Java Joe's, which is essentially Bread Alone, and Wilshire Rehab Center is Ferncliff, and Hillcrest Hospital is the Rhinebeck Hospital. There's all kinds of things about Rhinebeck in there. But more importantly, it is a story about how difficult it is to care for someone who's dying, and then you believe that they are fucking with your head and you think that they're trying to kill you.
And did you think at some point that your aunt
was I thought she was fucking with me. I really, really did, because of a couple of things that happened when she was failing.
And did you turn out to be right in that suspicion?
No, I didn't. But it did drive me to my computer where I wrote this book because I desperately needed catharsis from caring for her. And when you're caring for someone who you've known for many, many years, and we were close at one time, and you have all these angry thoughts, that I felt tremendous guilt over the feelings I had that I was not expressing to her, but I felt so guilty about it. And so, of course, I wrote a horror story where she becomes the villain. I guess that doesn't...
Did it start off as a horror story?
Oh, yeah. I knew it had to be a horror story.
Right away.
Because weird things had happened with her that didn't make sense. The doctors, she had COPD and a heart condition, and she got sepsis, and she refused to take medication. The doctors thought she had a day to live, and they transferred her at some point to Ferncliff. Ferncliff was so convinced she wasn't going to last more than a day or two that they never had me sign anything to admit her. Never. And she lived for another 9 months to a year after that. Right. She was the talk of Ferncliff, the absolute talk of Ferncliff. Right. It was... Things happened with her that were scary to me. And it was in part because I was stretched to the max. Right. And I put it all in my book. And there are all...
And so you're stretched to the max, and what comes out is a horror story. Had you written horror stories before?
Well, no. What's your point?
It's quite a jump. Jumping right into the horror genre.
It was, but it was the only genre that made sense. I had never really written a book before. It was the only genre that made sense to me at that time.
Had you written short stories before?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so the short stories came after the book.
That's right.
And on your website you have some opening lines from these short stories. The one I like best is, Cindy looked at her husband's toes and wondered how he would react if she cut the little ones off.
It is
it's fucked up.
It's a heartfelt story.
Yeah,
it's
heartfelt, yeah. Yeah, your heart is a little scary, evidently.
Well, I will share with people that if they do go to my website, which is DebraKevery.com, shameless promotion, some of my short stories, you can read them in total if you just click on them. That one is about to get published in an anthology, so that one is not yet on there. But there are a couple of other ones, Severed Heads and the like.
Yeah, from good friend Gordon, short story. I saw the head lying in a ditch bordering Daryl Bennett's farm. A man's head, short hair, even features, mid-30s. I like the way it's just described in such sort of matter-of-factness.
Yes, Millie. That woman's name is Millie. She's a sweet woman.
Your writing is really beautiful. I've read a bunch of it, and there's so many wonderful phrases and turns of phrase in there. So where can people get Deena Undone?
So you can buy Deena Undone anywhere, Amazon, Goodreads. If you like the book, please leave me a good review on Amazon and Goodreads. And if you don't like the book, for God's sakes, don't say anything.
And what about Oblong and stuff?
Oblong has it. Oblong is going to be selling books at my book launch party on the 26th. Sadly, it is sold out. But you are welcome to come.
The
book launch party. No, the book launch party is sold out. It's going to be at the Rhine Cellar. But please come after 4 o'clock and come to the after party. You can buy a book. And I'll even sign it if you like graffiti on your book.
What's happening at the book launch party?
Oh, we've got a spectacular jazz trio from the city, the Terry Royer Trio, who's going to be playing. We've got food, we've got cocktails, and I'm going to be doing an excerpt from my book. And then I'm going to also do an experiment. I shouldn't talk about that because you won't be able to see it because it's sold out. Or you can take a chance and come by. I suspect they'll just let you in anyway. Yeah. But it should be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about it.
We have 20 seconds left. Is there any chance you can find something to say?
Yes, buy my book. Buy my book. For God's sakes, buy my book. Mama want a new pair of shoes.
Deena Undone. And what's your website again?
Debra K. Every, EVERY.com.
Debra K. Every.
That's
Thank
me.
you so much for coming in and talking.
Such a blast.
What a blast.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Thank you.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Have a happy Friday and a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.